Namaskar to all the viewers across the country. I am Sanjula Haldar, Deputy Director in the Directorate of Income Tax PRPNP at Mayur Bhavan, Delhi. Welcome to another session from SAMVAAD. As part of SAMVAAD series, today we bring to you discussion on the topic eVerification Scheme 2021. The Income Tax Department is taking revolutionary steps to promote tax compliance, and eVerification Scheme 2021 is a big step in this direction. For this discussion, we have with us today Madam Sunita Bainsla, Director General of Income Tax, Intelligence and Criminal Investigation, Department of Revenue, Ministry of Finance. Madam Sunita Bainsla is an officer of Indian Revenue Service of 1988 and has done her post-graduation and MPhil in the field of history along with MPhil in national security and strategic studies. She has worked in various capacities in the Income Tax Department at Delhi, Jaipur, Agra and Lucknow. Presently, as Director General of Income Tax, Intelligence and Criminal Investigation, New Delhi, she heads 18 directorates across India. Thank you, ma'am, for accepting our invitation for this episode of SAMVAAD on the topic eVerification Scheme 2021.
Namaskar to all the viewers, and thank you, Sanjula, for having me here on this session of SAMVAAD. SAMVAAD is an excellent platform for positive discourse to share one's understanding of principles and provisions that would be useful for the stakeholders and our valued taxpayers. So I'm indeed grateful and happy to be here.
Ma'am, firstly, I would like to ask you, what are the broad objectives of eVerification Scheme 2021?
Sanjula, the eVerification Scheme 2021 was notified on 13th of December 2021 and it operates under Section 135 of the Income Tax Act. The broad objectives of the eVerification scheme are based on promoting voluntary compliance in a non-obtrusive manner and facilitating taxpayers to pay taxes correctly. As you are aware, all processes in the tax department are based on information technology. Information about financial transactions is gathered from various sources and the taxpayer is now shown the data to help file the return of income correctly. There could be situations where the data gathered from the source may be inaccurate, partially or fully, or that there is a mismatch in the income offered in the return of income and the financial transaction data which is available with the department. In both these situations, the taxpayer needs to be given an opportunity to explain the matter so that a better risk assessment of the return of income can be conducted before any proceedings are initiated under the Act. At a broad level, this is the core objective of the eVerification Scheme 2021.
Ma'am, in what manner does the eVerification scheme operate?
The scheme integrates various elements to provide opportunity for the taxpayer to be involved in ensuring that the correct data is used by the Income Tax Department while enabling voluntary compliance and avoiding any proceedings under the Income Tax Act. Rather, I would say help avoiding any proceedings under the Income Tax Act. Firstly, the data about financial transactions is collected from various sources under Section 285BA of the Income Tax Act, such as banks, including cooperative banks, sub-registrars, mutual funds, etc. Further data is also collected from TDS, TCS filings. This data is regularly uploaded to the registered account of the taxpayer and is visible in the annual information statement of the taxpayer since 2021. That is, the information is visible in the annual information. Taxpayer has been provided the facility to agree or disagree to any transaction in the AIS itself. Thereafter, the scheme provides that this data is processed for the initial verification by the CIT eVerification working under DG systems. Transactions which are disputed by the taxpayer are again confirmed from the source by the CIT eVerification. If after the response from the source this mismatch persists Such data is subjected to risk management strategy and low risk and no risk cases are dropped. The rest of the cases are pushed to the prescribed authority in INCI for e-verification.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, what is the process followed in intelligence and criminal investigation INCI once the case is received for e-verification?
In the Directorate of Income Tax, Intelligence and Criminal Investigation, such cases are assigned to officers for verification of the information by calling for explanation and evidence from the taxpayer. There are 18 directorates with prescribed authorities in all parts of the country. The officer who conducts the verification is called prescribed authority. There are 18 directorates, and these officers will discharge the responsibility of electronic verification of the information qua the taxpayer.
Ma'am, could you please explain to our viewers how will the verification be carried out by the prescribed authority?
The data is pushed to the prescribed authority by the DG systems. The entire process of issue of notice under section 133(6) of the Act to the taxpayer, submission of response by the taxpayer and preparation of the preliminary verification report by the prescribed authority will be done electronically through the compliance portal accessible through the e-portal of the Income Tax Department at incometax.gov.in.
Ma'am, could you please explain to us what should the taxpayer do when they receive a notice for e-verification and how should they file their response to it?
The notice under section 133(6) issued under the e-verification scheme will be visible to the taxpayer in the compliance portal, which is accessible through the e-portal of Income Tax Department, that is incometax.gov.in. Along with the notice, there will be an annexure 2 which will give the detailed path to be followed by the taxpayer for submitting the response on the compliance portal. There are various steps and those steps have been given in great detail. Firstly, the taxpayer has to log into the e-portal incometax.gov.in. Thereafter, taxpayer has to go to the pending action and there go to the compliance portal and click on the applicable financial year, thereafter click on DIN to download the notice, and once the submission is prepared, go to submit, click on submit to provide the response, and then also enter the remarks if any.
Ma'am, for the benefit of our taxpayers, I would like to ask you, what happens if a taxpayer logs in and nothing appears on the screen and a blank page opens up? Or if a taxpayer is facing any difficulty in submitting his response to the notice under e-verification, what should the taxpayer do, ma'am, in that case?
There is every possibility that sometimes difficulties may arise, and to deal with that situation, there is a help desk. The taxpayer has to log the complaint at the help desk for the compliance portal by calling 1-800-10-34215. It is to be noted that the helpline number is unique for each portal. So please use the helpline number. The taxpayer must use the helpline number for the compliance portal for redressal of difficulties relating to e-verification.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, how can a taxpayer know that a notice under e-verification has been issued to him or her?
The department will send a notice under section 133(6) of the Income Tax Act, and this notice will be visible on the taxpayer's e-filing portal account on incometax.gov.in. Along with this, the notice will also be emailed to the latest email address submitted to the department while filing the return of income. Also, the taxpayer will receive an SMS on the latest mobile number registered with the PAN. So, it is to be appreciated that the notice will be intimated to the taxpayer in a threefold manner simultaneously.
That is great news for the taxpayers, ma'am. Going further, I would like to ask you, ma'am, how can a taxpayer know that the proceedings under e-verification has been concluded?
On completion of the e-verification proceedings at the level of the prescribed authority and at the time of submission of the preliminary verification report which the prescribed authority is required to submit, a communication will be sent to the taxpayer informing one, either depending on what is the finding of the verification, no further verification on the issue under verification proceedings is presently required from the taxpayer. If the explanation is found satisfactory, this is what will be said. If the explanation is not found satisfactory or is not found sufficient to explain the mismatch, then the communication is the explanation is not found sufficient to explain the mismatch in the specific information, and the taxpayer may consider updating the return of income under section 139(8)(a) if eligible.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, many of the taxpayers might be confused whether there is a difference between the e-verification scheme and the e-verification of return. Could you please explain the difference to our taxpayers?
Yes, both are completely different. After filing the return of income, a taxpayer is required to verify the income tax return to complete the return filing process. Without verification within the stipulated time, an ITR is treated as invalid. E-verification is the most convenient and instant way to verify the ITR. The ITR can be e-verified online using OTP on mobile number registered with Aadhaar, net banking, digital signature, etc. On the other hand, the e-verification scheme 2021 is completely different from the e-verification of return. Under the e-verification scheme, verification of information is conducted by the department in the case of a taxpayer.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, where can a taxpayer see the financial transaction reported to the income tax department by the reporting entities or sources?
The financial transactions gathered by the income tax department are about a taxpayer's receipts which attract TDS, TCS, about information about immovable property, purchase or sale, deposits made in the banks, investment in shares, mutual funds, time deposits, etc. All these transactions can be viewed by a taxpayer in the AIS portal of the income tax account for financial year 2020 onwards. The AIS, that is the Annual Information Statement, can be accessed on the Services tab on the e-portal incometax.gov.in. There are various steps that are laid down, and against the Annual Information Statement, the specific information that is provided, the taxpayer has an option to state what applies in his case, whether the information is correct, whether the information is denied, whether the information is partially correct, whether the income or the transaction is exempt, and so on. There are about 5-6 tabs which open up, and whatever applies to the taxpayer that with regard to that particular information, the taxpayer can choose and submit his response.
Thank you, ma'am, for explaining that in detail. Ma'am, what should a taxpayer do if they find a financial transaction which is incorrectly recorded or which does not pertain to them at all?
As I stated earlier, this is a very transparent and informative system which has been adopted by the department. Whatever information is collected from various sources, it is shared in the AIS of the taxpayer. If the taxpayer feels that the information is incorrect, then on the AIS portal itself, the tab will open and you will be able to state what applies to you. If it is incorrect, you can state it is incorrect. If it is fully incorrect, state it is fully incorrect, partially incorrect, whatever it is. You will be able to indicate there on the tab itself. There is a on the right side, there is a feedback button by using which taxpayer can provide feedback from the menu options available.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, what happens if a taxpayer raises an objection to a financial transaction which is reported in the Annual Information Statement AIS.
The Income Tax Department through the CIT eVerification will contact the source or the reporting entity which reported the information or the transaction and will seek confirmation about the correctness of the data. If the source or the reporting entity agrees that there has been a mistake, the data will be corrected in due course of time after the reporting entity or the source files its corrected statement. This process is done through an automated information technology driven procedure. There could be a situation where the source or the reporting entity stands by the data it has originally furnished in the statement and does not support the objection raised by the taxpayer. In such a situation, there would be a possibility that further explanation and evidences from the taxpayer will be called under the eVerification Scheme 2021.
Thank you, ma'am, for patiently explaining the concept of eVerification Scheme 2021. We hope this session gave you the necessary insights into usefulness of eVerification Scheme 2021 and clarity to the taxpayers regarding where a taxpayer can see the financial transaction reported to the Income Tax Department by the reporting entities, and what happens after a taxpayer raises an objection to any transaction reported in the Annual Information Statement. eVerification Scheme 2021 will prove to be a huge step in strengthening Digital India and promoting voluntary tax compliance. With this, we come to the end of today's session on eVerification Scheme 2021. I thank you all for joining us for this episode. Please join us for the second session on the topic eVerification Scheme 2021, which will focus on answers to questions like what a taxpayer can do if they realize that they have missed a financial transaction while calculating their income for the return of income already filed by them, and how the eVerification Scheme 2021 is different from scrutiny assessment or reassessments. Do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube and Twitter, and keep watching for updates on more educational and informative content. Until the next time from SAMVAAD, thank you and Jai Hind.